It's time for Supply Chain Now. Broadcasting live from the supply chain capital of the country, Atlanta, Georgia. Heard around the world, Supply Chain Now spotlights the best in all things supply chain. The people, the technologies, the best practices, and the critical issues of the day. And now, here are your hosts.
Hey, good afternoon. Scott Luton back with you live on Supply Chain Now. Welcome back to the show. We're not broadcasting live in Atlanta like we typically do. We're coming to you live from Las Vegas, Nevada, home of the Reverse Logistics Association Conference and Expo. Where we are today is the center of the universe, at least for the next few days, for all things return and reverse logistics. And that has provided us with the opportunity to feature thought leaders in the space from really across the supply chain industry, but particularly with folks that are doing big things in the reverse logistics space. So we're going to continue that today with this episode. We should thank our sponsor here today. Our programming is brought to you by Recommerce. Recommerce Group Industries, industry leader in return product management, return center services, remanufacturing, reprocessing, repairing, and recycling of consumer products. All the re's, as we've been saying. Learn more at recommercegroupinc.com. Quick programming note, like all of our podcasts, you can really find us wherever you get your podcasts from. Spotify, Apple Podcasts,
YouTube.
Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. And on that note, perfect timing as always, Greg. Welcome in my fearless co-host, Greg White, serial supply chain tech entrepreneur, chronic disruptor, supply chain adjutant. We haven't used that in a while.
No, that's a good one.
Trusted advisor, Greg White. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing great. This is an energizing show.
It has been energizing. That we've done 3 sessions so far here on day 1, and all 3 of them, well, invigorating, energizing,
and all the ends also, right? Invigorating, right. Enlightening,
ends and rees.
Yeah.
And I got a sense from our brief pregame show that this is going to continue to trend. So with no further ado, let's introduce our guest speaker, or our guest featured interview guest for this episode, Tom Maher with Dell, Senior VP for Global Service Parts. Tom, how you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me on the show.
You bet.
Yeah, it's our pleasure.
Tony Schroeder said we could not get in and out of Las Vegas without sitting down with you.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we had the opportunity to do this.
Oh, thanks. I'm thrilled to be here.
All right. So as we always like to start, before we start talking shop and best practices and what you and your team are doing at Dell, let's get a sense of who Tom is. So give us born and raised, some of your upbringing, or some of your give us a skinny on how Tom grew up.
Okay, sure. So born and mostly raised in the Northeast in New York. Young, maybe 3 years old, moved to Florida.
Okay.
Sports is huge for me. So I'm a massive sports fan.
Favorite sports team?
So everything I learned from the ages of 3 to 8, I was in Florida, Port St. Lucie. So I'm a Miami Dolphins fan. We're going to have a great draft, all right? Boston Celtics, Cincinnati Reds, and grew up Notre Dame Fighting Irish, but now went to Villanova University.
Oh,
so
you did?
Massive Wildcat fan, best basketball team in the nation. But I'm also a diehard University of Texas Longhorn fan, supporting them after 21 years in Austin.
Yep.
Wow.
But grew up mostly in the East Coast. I went to Villanova University, got 3 siblings, parents were educators. Went to Villanova, thought I'd be a great runner, and thought I was a great basketball player.
Until you got to Villanova. A lot of students wind up that way at Villanova.
A whole new level, but great 4 years there. And then embarked on, I was going to be a lawyer, right? Went and did all the things you have to do. Thought I was a genius and said, I'll take a year off. So went and spent some time with some buddies in Boston, lived in East Boston. Was officially thrown out. This is where Jay Leno, several people grew up, and I was officially thrown out for not gaining enough weight. So the plan was to move to Southern California, a group of us. And I ended up being the only one there. Worked at a ranch camp, learned how to ride horses. Worked at a surf camp, did not learn how to surf. Blind as a bat. Lost multiple pairs of contact lenses, gave up on that. But I literally lived in a trailer on the beach. Opened the trailer, there was the Pacific Ocean.
Wow.
I worked at the surf camp. A buddy of mine enticed me to learn how to ski. So we moved to Winter Park, Colorado, lived there for 3 years. Met my now wife, who's from France, who was an exchange student spending some time working in the U.S. In Winter Park, Colorado. I did learn how to ski.
Yes.
All right, so that was great. And then followed my then girlfriend, now wife, to France, and I lived 2 years backpacking, working odd jobs across Greece, England, Ireland, France. Did that for a couple of years, and I guess I found myself.
That's a pretty broad perspective, right? I mean, but I applaud that. You did, in your youth, what most people have a bucket list for, right?
Yeah, there's pros and cons. So I didn't have a 401k till I was 28.
Yeah.
And right now I've got a 19-year-old son somewhere in Canada living out of the back of my wife's Ford Flex.
Oh, my.
He built it into a camper. He's got solar panels on top, a fridge, backup batteries hooked to the alternator.
Of
so
course.
He's doing a gap year. And, I have a tough time arguing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, I like to say I did it after I matured a little bit.
Yeah.
But he's convinced us. He's applied for schools. He's literally a genius, right? The problem is he knows it. And so we're pretty confident he'll go to school next year. Then I have a daughter at University of Texas graduating.
Great.
In this May, and a freshman in high school who will one day be in the NBA and my retirement plan.
Is that right? That's good.
That's what I'm telling him.
Yeah, that's good.
What is your daughter going to do, you think?
She has her own company.
Oh, wow. Okay,
So,
already.
Yeah, so she and my oldest boy have twice started up companies. He has his own photography company that's helping fund his trip. My daughter has a modeling agency, Evo Model Management.
Okay.
So Evo, my son is Everest, and she is Ocean, and then the youngest is Orion, so it's EVO. And it's a mother agency. What she does is finds the talent, right? So she did a little modeling when she was younger and understood that there's a lot of problems in that, in a lot of these industries that have, young women.
Yeah.
And she went through some of those challenges and learned that, hey, I think I can do something here. So she recruits them, trains them, builds out portfolios, and then works with the larger firms at IMG, Ford, right? And she signed several girls so that they can have a future in doing this. Some will do it as a gap year for them. Some will make it a profession. So she's been doing that for she just had her second-year anniversary. Now, you want to get a really funny story. So my son is difficult to work with because he does all the technical stuff, right? He's the photographer. They had a company where she would go to all the races. She's met a lot of the famous runners in the country, would interview them and then put them up on a show like yours. But she had a lot of content that people would purchase.
Right.
And he would get fired every week. And then Sunday, by her,
Yep.
when he had to do the uploads, she'd have to rehire him because there'd be some technical difficulty. and he's very technical, very artistic, and he'll get it all fixed. She made him sign a contract. He can't date the models.
Oh, smart.
Fired in the first week. And now, on occasion, with a lot of prodding, he does help out if she's in a bind when needs a photographer.
Love it. I love it. There's so much we could dive into there. One question, though. So in your early years, where from surfing to skiing to traveling the world, a lot of my conjecture, a lot of folks don't do that. They don't feel empowered to follow up on passions and that sense of adventure. What allowed you to do that? Was it your parents, or what enabled you to do that?
Yeah, I don't think being a parent now, I'm not sure they were big fans of it. Back then, you didn't have the internet. You didn't know everything you know today. And that's, I think, good and bad.
Right.
To be able to survive on minimal amounts of money, right? You take ketchup and put it in hot water and tell yourself it's tomato soup, right? I think I was just kind of grew up that way. We're pretty frugal. And I was able to figure out how to get around, how to do things. Had jobs all growing up, so never had a problem, walking in and trying to find a job, waiting tables or what have you. Now, my parents, my father was an educator, so his big advice was don't get lost trying to find yourself. He probably would have preferred law school right away, and to his defense, I never ended up going. Right? But they I think at the end of the day, as a parent, and I'm a hypocrite, right? The biggest hypocrites in the world are managers and parents, right? I stole that from a colleague, Nick Patterson.
Yeah.
But you go out and
also
you've
a
got,
hypocrite.
Yes. you have to enable them and let them make the decisions, right?
Yeah.
Well, we're not thrilled that I have a 19-year-old, started at 18, driving around. He's driven to Fairbanks, Alaska, the Arctic Ocean, Washington, D.C.,
Wow.
right? And that can be a scary proposition, but you learn so much.
Yes.
And I think my father once said, he goes, you know you're a great parent if you've got good kids who raise a family on their own and you see them every day and they're not in trouble and they're, taking care of their families. You know you're a great parent when your kids can go anywhere on the planet and be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think he credited Irma Bombecker, somebody with that. But they, it's not like they funded it for me, which I try to remind my 19-year-old all the time.
Yeah,
it's not the same.
Yeah.
I did it, but I paid for it, or I figured out how to pay for it. All right, so before we start talking about what your team and your team are doing at Dell, let's talk about your professional journey, the Reader's Digest version. So kind of your earliest job, say post-surfing and skiing and traveling the world, that first job to your current role, kind of paint that picture for that journey for us.
Yeah, well, I'll say at university, because I thought I was going to go to law school, it was English and psychology, which has nothing to do with supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So in hindsight, may not have been the best choice, but they were great for law school. I got into supply chain by accident. So my father was ill. I had flown back from Europe. And the phone rang, and it was Elite Temp Agency, and they said, hey, you passed the drug test, you can start on Monday. I said, great, you got the wrong number, but what's the job?
Yeah.
Right? And it was an interesting role. It was TRW that was quickly separating off Computerland, and then Computerland, after I joined, quickly got split and became Vanstar, and the franchises kept Computerland. So I went in, and I, as a temp, I went in and was part of an excess and obsolescence project. So I've always been in the aftermarket service parts. So we were pulling a bunch of inventory from the field, U.S.-based, and separating it in, deciding what's going to go for maybe refurbishment, repair, resell, all that kind of stuff. So I learned a little bit. And then just, getting to know the team, the leaders getting to know me. I ended up running the warehouse. Then I ended up running a repair center as well as the warehouse and continue to just move up within what the company was then named Vanstar. And then one day it snowed like 20-some inches in 24 hours, and living in New Jersey at the time. And my wife said, you need to make a decision, Miami or Las Vegas. And she wasn't kidding.
Wow.
And so
zero tolerance policy for 23 inches of snow.
And she was a flight attendant with United Airlines at the time, and she could, transfer to either of those. And for, I don't recall the reasons, we ended up in Las Vegas or right here for 2 years, and the company was nice enough. I actually took a demotion in order to facilitate that, and then ended up running a
Sounded
region.
like otherwise you're going to get a demotion domestically.
Yes, that would have been worse.
Yes.
Right?
Lose 20% of your pay or 50% of your pay.
And so then we had, as a lot of companies do, right? Dell was just phenomenal growth back in the 90s. And they took a senior vice president from our company who took a vice president who brought myself and many people who are still at Dell today over, where Dell was growing so fast and wanted to kind of professionalize the aftermarket services piece of that by getting people, who were doing that as an industry versus, when you're growing real fast, you find smart people, put them into new roles and give them opportunities, which is great, but wanted to augment that with a few people who have been doing it for a while. So I did that for about 5 years and ended up at Dell in Austin, and my first job there. And we were growing so fast back then. It happened to a lot of people. I showed up and had a new job my first day. So I interviewed for job A. Actually said no. Almost a year later, and multiple stock splits.
Right.
My company was moving me to Atlanta. Nothing against Atlanta, gentlemen, but we preferred Austin. And ended up in Austin. And when I showed up, we had just the announcement of Digital being acquired by Compaq occurred. So Compaq is obviously a big competitor back in the day. and Digital was doing our repair depot for our notebooks when we ship them in. And so quickly I was put onto that project with a brand new job, and we had to move it. All right, so we moved it to a company, PC Service Source, and then I just grew within the aftermarket supply chain inside of Dell. Back then we were all very sub-regional, all inside the business units. And today we are a global services organization. That didn't exist, 21 years ago.
Yeah.
And as that continued to grow out, I did stints where I ran North America, same day supply chain. I ran all of Latin America, then the Americas. I did a few months in Singapore helping work on a project out there as we started to outsource a lot of our supply chain. And then, many years later, now I'm responsible for the entire aftermarket service parts.
So on that note, there's so much to dive into across that journey. But for the sake of the interview here today, Greg, let's dive into kind of what that means. Everyone knows Dell, right?
Right. I think everyone knows in their mind what Dell does, either what it did originally or what it does now. But tell us a little bit about what role does global service parts play in the Dell ecosystem?
Yeah, and Dell Technologies now is obviously very large, and we're helping companies digitally transform their business, because every company now is an IT company at some level, right? And then they need a lot of help, and we're uniquely positioned to provide an end-to-end solutions. A piece of that, when you get into the hardware portion of Dell Technologies, so storage product all the way down to Chromebooks, that is part of the Global Services Organization. We sell these products, hundreds of millions, that are out there under active contracts that we have to service. My team's responsibility is to have the right part, right place, right time, right quality to ensure we keep those consumers or those companies up and running so they can do what they want to do with our technology. Right? I'm fond of saying nobody buys a Dell laptop because they enjoy typing. Right? That laptop has a purpose, or that server has a purpose. And our job is to enable that purpose.
Yeah.
Right? Humans need to thrive, and it takes the technology to enable all that to happen. So it's keeping our customers up and running through whatever disruptions may be occurring in the world, in the industry, et cetera. Right now, coronavirus is a massive disruption to the supply chain. Right?
We're starting to see, I think there was a report this morning about the automotive in particular. And it's, to your point, it's disruptive across industries. And there's so much still unknown that is going to, further impact. But they're about to shut down. They've already shut down some automotive lines in Korea, and they're about to shut down the rest of them in China, because as part shortages are starting to catch up, and really be a huge obstacle. Despite some of the containment, which is good news that we're hearing. So we'll see how this plays out. But I like how you mentioned that your devices, no one buys a computer to type. It's a vehicle to ride the digital wave, regardless of what the user's passion is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing for people to recognize is some of the names that you talked about. In the old days, the disruptive model that Dell had was that they sold you a laptop direct or a computer direct. Before that, you had Computerland, you had Gateway, you had CompUSA. I mean, you went someplace. I know this sounds crazy to a lot of our listeners out there, but you physically went someplace to look at and buy a computer, and that evolution has continued as the cloud has become more and more prominent. That's become a bigger part of the business at Dell, right? And yet the laptop business, I know because I'm a big-time Costco shopper, and they sell a ton of Dell products. But yet that laptop and computer business has continued to thrive. And as we've talked about with some of our other guests, there's sort of a cast-off effect as these products break down or are even obsoleted. You have to do something with those parts, and you have to do something with parts to keep the product alive as it as certain aspects of the computer fail or fade or whatever, right? And that's a reality for business. And I think it's interesting because I'm not sure that people would understand why Dell is at a reverse logistics summit.
That's
right?
a good point.
No, it is a good point. The circular economy now affects every single company, regardless of what products they're making, right? And Dell's known this for a long time, right? I've been a part of the reverse logistics for over 10 years. Sit on the board today. And it's passionate across all of Dell that not just to build product that will last a long time and support whatever purpose our customers are going to utilize it for, but we don't want it to end up in landfills. Right, we want that product to be able to recycle, repurpose, reuse.
Right,
and that's what reverse logistics is all about. And there's tremendous benefit.
Right.
And if my boss was here, and he will be later today, said my job is not the tactical day-to-day stuff. Right, we have a planning organization. We have to decide in over 165 countries that we support, and in over 800 stocking locations. We need to decide what part, what quantity to put in each of those so that we can hit the different service levels our customers require, which can be 2 hour, next day, mail it in and fix it, different, various service levels. We have to be able to do that, so we plan it, procure it. We have to bring it into our warehouses. We have to manage those warehouses, inventory control, pick, pack, ship, deliver it to our customers, and the big piece is getting the defectives back. It is a very challenging job when you're calling and you're talking to one of my family members and trying to diagnose a problem, right?
Any family member in particular?
Well, almost all of them, except what they tend to do is now call my 19-year-old, and he's quick. But so you're trying to figure this out over the phone.
Yep.
Right, and we're going to do our best, right? We have world-class technical support. We're going to drop orders. I'm going to have my organization will ship out a motherboard or a hard drive, whatever is required, and we want to get that customer up. That is 100% the main focus of our organization is take care of that customer. But the value, I get those defective parts back.
Yes.
I'm able to do the analysis on those and determine what really went wrong.
Right.
So and that's the data that is critical for reverse logistics, because my job is not just to get the customer back up and running. It's to help Dell build better products in the future so they never need it.
Yeah.
Tony
and
Shirota's
technical support to have the better diagnosis capability. So it's all of our data that we bring into a data lake that is leveraged by our product engineers and our technical support engineers in order to provide a better overall experience for our customers.
I love that perspective because Tony, as you know from working with him on the board, he's a big proponent and was in his prior life of build it better or inform the consumer better to avoid the return. Right, that's the most important part of reverse logistics is to avoid as much reverse logistics as you possibly can.
If you avoid ever having an incident, those are the happiest customers you're ever going to have.
Yeah. Well, as you're describing what you do and the benefits there, I love you've got a data play, right, which goes into root cause analysis, which helps all the product lines, right? You are keeping things out of landfills, which we can't spend enough time and energy trying to do that now. But then, as with any corporation, there's a financial incentive because you are taking some parts and able to reuse them, I would assume, in other devices and rebuilt and remanufactured computers, which are also finding bigger and bigger markets these days, too. Yes,
and we do all of that. And our remanufacturing or refurbishment activity is a different org, right? Yep. But we do that, and we do it together in a way where I'll actually do some teardown in order to leverage that inventory as well. But for us, when we bring that product back, and if we go through a repair process, we're able to put the latest and greatest revisions on it. We're able to give feedback to our product engineers on, hey, services compatibility from one revision to the next. Right. How can we make this more seamless? Because everything you ever buy, you're going to have to dispose of at some point in one way or another. So we want to reduce that as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, love it.
And financially, it makes great sense, right? Because you can avoid a purchase and the development of another product that you will have to one day dispose of.
Yep. Right. On a previous show, we talked about built for CE design building. It sounds like as y'all look at how you develop your own products, and at Dell, you take that CE mindset because we have so many factors that go into how we design things for its post-use lifetime these days, right?
Right, and serviceability is a big focus of ours, right? Have something, obviously you've got to have product that customers are enticed to buy, the look, the feel, all that. But if you build something that's got 500 different screws in it, right, that's not going to work.
Right.
Right, so you want to remove some of the complexity.
Interesting.
So how has our sort of move towards a throwaway society, how has it impacted your part of the business? Your part of the business is fixing product that's broken, right? I mean, it is, or providing the parts that do so, right? So how has that impacted your business? How do you see that kind of trending?
Yeah, so in our side of the business, because so much of it is under contract,
right?
So it's an active services contract that will have the customer. We have consumables, of course, on piece parts that are what you would call throwaway. But it hasn't had a major impact on us because we're still, the customers are incented. You see, if you get a service part from Dell, you'll have on that package a nice green label that talks about reuse, right? The reusing the packaging and why it's good for the environment. And we educate our customers on if we get that motherboard back or we get that hard drive back, we can do things with that. A bigger impact we've had is data privacy, right? So we sell offers such as keep your hard drive. The things that don't come back to us would be more components that are storing data. And we give customers an offer in order for them to avoid having that level of perceived risk. Now, if it does come back to us, we've got all the proper controls in place to destroy that data, right? So a customer doesn't have to worry.
All right, so let's shift gears a little bit here. We want to go broader. There's so much that just your team is involved with at Dell. But let's go broader. Let's go beyond Dell. When you look at the end-to-end global supply chain landscape right now, what's one or two industry trends or developments or innovations, you name it, that you're tracking more than others?
Yeah, so in the service parts world, we've always been more or less kind of the little stepbrother of manufacturing, right? You got Ford Logistics, which everybody knows with the automation, the robotics, very lean, all that. So that's case studies galore. As we said earlier, you didn't go to school for supply chain in the old days.
Right.
Now that started to happen, and you're starting to see kids take that as a curriculum, and now you're seeing reverse logistics come in. So trends specifically in my world, in the reverse logistics world, we are for the first time ever seeing true investment in robotics. Now we're talking smaller warehouses that have tremendous more complexity.
Right.
So it's going to be lots of SKUs that you're going to be supporting product for 10-plus years, not just that manufacturing where you're going to get it out the door and move on to the next product in 6 months. So we have the complexity of having to move across borders on a regular basis, bring the defectives, do the repair. So it's been difficult over the years to get companies to invest in robotics because it wasn't as well suited. We are now seeing that take off. The other big piece is the data. So the innovation and leveraging artificial intelligence is huge and is going to change the industry. You've had a lot of smart people doing Excel-based analytics, right? Figuring out solutions. Now with artificial intelligence, to give you an idea what we're doing inside of Dell and with our partners, we can determine when a notebook is being returned to us. We would have it on 100% of the platforms, but a significant amount. Before it ever gets to us, what components do we have to replace? And it goes down a specific repair line. It's all with artificial intelligence, machine learning engineering. We perform the fix. We call it our predictive repair or digital repair solution. And then we take that data, we feed it into a data lake. That's combined with significant other amounts of data to help build a better diagnosis solution for the customer. So we want to keep them up and running without even having an incident, right? And as I said earlier, to get that data to the product group. So it's leveraging, in my world, artificial intelligence across the entire supply chain. In order to do that, we have to digitize our supply chain. And over the years, it hasn't been 100%. You got a planning module, you got a procurement, you got inventory. They weren't all interconnected. So our focus is getting that to be one single digital supply chain. So if there is an effect somewhere with a Tier 3 supplier, maybe in China, that is going to have an impact, the planning tool knows without a human even being involved and can make the decisions, pull from repair, do something different, redistribute inventory, adjust a PO. So we can't do that without artificial intelligence because it's just moving too quick.
Right.
A volcano in Iceland affecting traffic patterns, right? To have that quick response. We think the artificial intelligence will take over the bulk of the, call it tactical decision-making across the supply chain. And in the old days when we had a real smart, mathematically inclined person being a planner, we now have PhDs. All right, so we have, I think we have 4 PhDs on the team now who are helping drive the algorithms. As you think 21 years ago, you had somebody who knew how to use Excel.
Right.
To now
that was really good at math.
Yeah,
I mean,
very
really,
good, very
really
good.
at math, right.
And it still runs a big part of the global economy.
Right.
But now we're getting students who have gone through school of supply chain experts, gone on to get their PhD in data science or an equivalent, and are now coming into industry and changing it dramatically. Now, we look at other trends, blockchain, for instance, to see if there's ways to have a more secure supply chain. We're looking at drone technology and doing some true testing there where we think there's some opportunities, especially when you get into some of the emerging markets and you're supporting some of the customers who have like pharmaceutical needs, or you have to get product out to a customer in a very difficult environment, right? As they're spread across some of the emerging markets.
It is interesting as we talk so much about AI, and it's so interesting of how some contingent of the overall consumer base or even in the business world think that AI is still around the corner. AI has been leveraged and is doing things that I think a lot of folks don't even realize,
you're right.
as they're interacting with their retail brands or you name it. And almost to a person, when we talk about what's, global trends, what are they tracking, everyone's talking about how not just how AI is being leveraged now, the benefits now, but how they're doubling down in 2020 and beyond. So it'll be very interesting, and the exciting thing, at least, what we like talking about, because whether you're talking drones, you're talking automation or AI, any of these kind of Industry 4.0 themes, a lot of folks are really worried about jobs or getting displaced. But really, what we hear leaders talking about is how that's going to open up doors of opportunities for so many folks that will be able to do more within organizations and more. If you like doing the same thing day in, day out,
it's going to be
40
a
hours a week. It is. You're going to have a challenging period ahead, but
unless that same thing is welding.
Or driving a truck.
There's plenty of opportunity for humans to continue to do that, and they're making a bundle doing it.
That's right. Great point.
But even those things, I think, not plumbing, but certain things will come to be automated. And the truth is, look, the way that the generational demographics are changing, they have to be, right? Yeah. We used to talk about the John Henry story, right? We used to talk about the steam engine as being a threat to the worker who could drive 100 pins into the railroad ties, right? But that's not what's happening today with AI. What's happening with AI is it's taking on those things that are repetitive or mundane or less intuitive, right? That require lots of deep learning and can be managed with predominantly that deep learning or experiential learning. And then that just elevates workers to the next level to do those things, right? People,
shouldn't be fearful.
Yeah.
I would just add that, even going back to the John Henry story, everybody's going to have a fear of that change.
Yep.
And what nobody really knows, but it has always happened, is it creates jobs nobody even knew would exist.
Yes.
It opens up brand new opportunities or environments. There's going to be, I believe, a massive rush to smart cities.
Yeah.
And making those smart cities are going to create a ton of jobs. Right now, if you're trying to hire warehouse workers, repair engineers, drivers. It is very difficult. But that's not going to be like that forever.
Right.
Right? Economies they'll go up and down. They'll change.
Right.
The difference is, I think you'll have kids coming out of school today that will reinvent themselves 3, 4, 5 times throughout their careers. The old days of having a career that's, followed maybe a path,
one
but
track.
stayed within the vertical, one track.
Right,
Those
25
days
years
are
at
over.
Ford or whatever.
Yeah, we have it inside, right? Change management.
Right.
We're moving. We're implementing a new inventory system, and as we did that, we moved 100% of the reporting to Power BI, and it was a struggle. People wanted to, see their data in a certain way, and my message to the team was, I would never hurt you in that way because your ability to do something in Excel does not impress anybody in the future. And the beauty of it is learning the new technologies is easier than ever before. Do you remember, certainly back in my day, to learn how to really use Excel?
Right.
And you had to spend some time and effort.
Yep.
Power BI, you spend the weekend and you are using it. Right?
Well, it's not only easier just as platforms and technology and how they're built, it's easier for the generations that are coming into
They're
the
used to
workforce.
it.
Yes.
Yeah, we have kids that come in, we hire them right out of university, and they're excellent, talented individuals, and we say, hey, have you ever coded anything in Python, right, a machine learning language?
Right.
Say no, but I'll be back on Monday.
Give me a weekend.
Yeah, literally a weekend, and some of them because it's more natural to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I do think you're going to see a spike in the other jobs, the arts, the customer service, the ability to, interact with individuals. So nobody knows. But the confidence level I have that artificial intelligence and all this other automation will create opportunities that'll be 10x what we have today.
Agreed.
It has happened with every industrial revolution we've ever had. No reason it won't happen again. It's just trying to get through that period of change is difficult.
Agreed. There's so much. I appreciate your time here today.
Yeah.
So tell us about how can our listeners learn more and connect with Dell and maybe even compare notes with you?
Yeah, so we're involved in a lot of different areas, right? So via the RLA, right, the Reverse Logistics Association is always a good way. It's really about bringing like-minded or industry individuals together.
Yes.
Right, and a lot of that,
it's critical.
Right, the connection there is about partners, learning to work together, finding new customers, all that kind of stuff. I'm involved in several universities. All right, I sit on the advisory board for the Supply Chain Executive Consortium Advisory Board for Arizona State. We are very open when it comes to every email you ever get from me. It has my cell phone and everything, so you can contact the Dell supply chain team directly.
Okay.
We've got all the social media. We got Twitter. So my Twitter, right? I'm the second greatest all-around athlete ever.
How about that?
Right?
Wow.
Do you know who the greatest is?
No, Jim Brown?
It is not Jim Brown, but he's in the running.
Yeah.
All right. It is Danny Ainge.
Danny Ainge. How about that?
Did you know
Baseball.
he was the football player of the year in the state of Oregon? Quarterback, could have gone anywhere. Great basketball player.
right.
Of course.
Starting third baseman for the
Right.
Toronto Blue Jays.
Right.
Did not
And
know
a
that.
scratch golfer.
Really?
So I give Danny Ainge I'm a master of none, but I
Yes.
can do them all.
You know who else will
Does
be up
Danny
there?
still live in
He's
Arizona?
he's in Boston. He's
Is he?
the
Okay.
GM.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Dave Winfield will be on that same list.
He would, a high jumper, football, basketball, baseball.
Draft.
Maybe not football.
He was drafted in baseball, basketball, and football, and he chose baseball.
Yeah.
Frank Thomas.
Frank Thomas.
The modern day Frank Thomas, not the older day. The Frank Thomas that played mainly for the White Sox.
Right, and then Auburn tight end. Right?
Yes, yes. But anyway, no shortage. But so you're active on Twitter. We'll check you out there. But really appreciate, it takes, as we've become huge, not just RLA fans, but big fans of Tony Sciarrotta, it takes support from the big brands like Dell through the mid-market and through the into the smaller businesses to support and engage and participate in events like this, because to your point, it's even in this digital age and how we consume and we relate and communicate with each other via all the social platforms. That's important. It's not going anywhere. But man, sitting down and building rapport and sharing and communicating best practices and benchmarking, that still has not, that hasn't been replaced. And we'll see. Come 2050, we'll see if they've been able really.
What you learn coming to these events is phenomenal. We've had more partnerships, lack of a better term, cutting deals at RLA than any other industry event we've been at.
Wow.
Really?
And we have seen partners come together to solve solutions and even mergers and acquisitions, all by bringing the companies together.
How about
I can see that. I can totally see that from just the companies we've talked to.
Okay.
In yesterday and this part of today, I see the synergies between certain companies and others here. There is definitely.
Yeah, you can look at the history of the last 15 years, the amount of consolidation that has taken place and will continue to take place is real. And I do think for all the students out there, supply chain is a career.
Yes.
And when you're in the reverse, right, you're taking care of the environment, you're helping the company, right, your bottom line, and you're keeping your customers up and running. Right? It's a fun place to be. And it's still very creative, very entrepreneurial, because you are solving issues every single day.
We have to connect you with Karan Agrawal.
Yes, no, I think that's a great idea.
Who is the Bright Future recipient that we talked about in Round Rock with Dell in the analyst organization.
Okay.
Because you just spoke the same words that he spoke. You two are birds
and he's
of a
living
feather.
It.
Yes. And we have to connect these
He came on with a message of why supply chain is perfect for millennials.
Yes, exactly.
And loved it. So we'll do that. Karan, if you're listening, hello. Your ears are a bit burning.
Meet you soon.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So we've been speaking with Tom Maher with Dell, Senior Vice President, Global Service Parts. Fascinating conversation. Really appreciate what you're doing and your thought leadership. And thanks for carving out time, sharing some of it with our audience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Now, sit tight for a second. We're going to wrap up. As always, we invite our audience to come check us out at awesome events like the Reverse Logistics Association Conference and Expo. And, Greg, first up is the largest supply chain trade show in North America, right?
35,002 people will be there, you and me, and 35,000 of our closest friends at
Modex.
Modex Show, modexshow.com. In Atlanta at the Georgia World Congress Center, March 9th through the 12th, free to attend, materials handling, product and
many
product
factories
flow.
on the floor.
Yeah, many factories, many warehouses, many conveyor systems, and by many, we mean 50 by 50, but not the size of a full warehouse.
Right.
So it's a great opportunity to see what's going on. There are lots of companies contributing to that. So we'll be streaming live from there, interviewing 20, 25 people probably while we're there.
Yep.
And also on day 2 of Modex, the Atlanta Supply Chain Awards is March 10th from 10 a.m. to 1:30. So you're going to get lunch bought for you.
That's right.
Nominate.
Right.
If you're interested in sponsorship, please give us a shout, but that's not our biggest concern. And if you want to be there, you better sign up quick.
Yeah,
because
we will
tickets
sell
are going
out
fast.
Yeah,
we're very close.
And we're pleased to have a keynote there. Christian Fisher, President CEO of Georgia Pacific, will be serving as our keynote. And our MC is Shan Cooper, former senior executive at Lockheed Martin and Chief Transformation Officer at WestRock. So we've got one heck of a 1-2 punch at this awards program, which is all about celebrating the best of what takes place across the end-to-end supply chain in Metro Atlanta. The only requirement is you have to have some kind of presence or operations in that 29-county area.
And a repair facility counts.
That's right. Absolutely. We have a Reverse Logistics Award, which we modeled over the awards.
Nominate.
There you go. That's right.
Tom, you're a quick learner. Yeah. But to that point, because of our partnership with RLA, we modeled that new award in year 2 of the Atlanta Supply Chain Awards off their program here, awards program here.
Yep.
All right, so beyond that big event, which takes place in March, we've got 2 events with the Automotive Industry Action Group, right, Greg?
Yes. So that's April 28th and 9th in Novi, Michigan.
That's right. CSR.
Stop number 6 on the train. N-O-V-I.
Yes.
That's corporate. That's a little bit of trivia we learned from Jim Legio, right? So that's their Corporate Responsibility Summit, April 28th and 29th. And then we're back in June. It's which is another event. We're back in June 9th, for their Supply Chain Summit. And Then we have a top secret day.
Yes,
the day after.
Which Tom, you may be already be aware of this since you're so plugged into kind of the next generation and the academic pipeline that supports supply chain. Wayne State University. We've heard big things about their growing supply chain program. So we're going to be up there covering the AIAG Supply Chain Summit on the 9th. But that follow-up day, I believe we're going to be on campus talking with students and professors as part of that program.
We're going to get to find out directly just how little we know about supply chain.
And how uncool I am and how cool Greg is. But that's nothing new. All right, so last event, AME Atlanta 2020 Lien Summit is coming back to Atlanta May 4th through the 7th. We're there at that Association for Manufacturing Excellence event May 4th, interviewing all the participants in this event, which is, of course, geared towards manufacturing and folks that love continuous improvement.
Yep.
Lots of best practices there. You can find out about all these events, right, on our website, on the events tab. You can also find past replays, other resources, all at supplychainnowradio.com. And, Greg, where can they find our podcast?
They can find it at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, really. And don't forget,
YouTube.
Hey, it's your turn to do it.
You almost got me.
I almost got you.
So, Tom.
He tries to trip me up at the end of every show.
That's surprising with the question I asked him. That you were on target this time.
Not bad, huh?
Okay, so we've got a big thanks again, Tom with Dell, for joining us and sharing a lot of things you probably did not know that this iconic brand is involved with. So, and why supply chain is not boring, which it harkens back to a different episode. We use that very tongue-in-cheek. But there's so much going on in the world of supply chain, reverse logistics, returns, you name it, that's making us all better. Okay, on behalf of the entire team, Scott Luton, Greg White, stay tuned as we continue our live coverage of the Reverse Logistics Association Conference and Expo right here in Las Vegas, Nevada. We'll see you soon.